Nice to have something light up your day once in a while, and we had a nice letter yesterday from and drawings in celebration of Manitoba 150 from Ms. Allison Bruckshaw's grade 6 class at Van Wallingham School. I want to shout out to them, not just because they're in Fort White, which is a wonderful riding, but also because they brighten my day, and I know that I join with them and all Manitobans in celebrating the birth of our province 150 years ago plus a day. Thank you to all Manitobans who continue to keep themselves and others safe. Thank you for listening to Dr. Rusin and Lynette Saragusa as they give you good advice. Thank you for physical distancing. We are going to continue to keep this COVID curve flattened, and we're doing that because you are following the fundamentals that you must and that you should to protect yourselves and others. Because of you, we've been able to begin to restart slowly and carefully our economy. I know that there are many of you that are frustrated. I know that many of you are impatient to see more progress happen faster. But we have to remember to take this one step at a time carefully in the interests of protecting ourselves and each other. But also, as many in the business community have said to me, they don't want to see a reversal. They don't want to see reopening and then having to close again. That confusion and that frustration would be awfully hard on small businesses in our province, but also very, very hard on their employees and their families. So please do your part, keep doing your part to help us to keep making the progress we're making. This is an unprecedented global pandemic, and Manitoba has responded thoughtfully and with a balanced recovery plan, and I'm proud to say, and thanks to you, it is working. Manitobans are facing this challenge together. We're protecting our physical health. We're protecting our mental health. We are protecting our economic health. We are protecting our future too. The Manitoba government's focused on protecting, in the first instance, our most vulnerable people by developing one of the best and frankly, one of the broadest and strongest support packages that any province has put together, bar none. And I wanted to ask you to indulge me in just giving a quick summary of the programs that we pulled together to help in Manitoba to strengthen our situation just in the last few weeks. We've offered the most effective GAP program in the country. Saskatchewan just upped theirs, so we're now the second most generous program in Canada. We've rolled out a wide-ranging summer student wage subsidy program. It's the most ambitious in the province's history. We have brought forward a seniors economic recovery credit to help our seniors get through this pandemic. They are the category that is the most at risk, of course. We've encouraged grocers and pharmacies to designate hours for vulnerable people to shop in safely, including seniors. We've organized rebates from Manitoba Public Insurance to every driving Manitoban. We've deferred provincial income tax and corporate tax filing deadlines and cooperated with our local municipalities in them doing the same. That will help Manitobans. We've announced the removal of over $75 million in annual PST from residential and business insurance that will keep more money in the hands of those who own homes or properties or have small businesses. We've ensured that no renter would be evicted on the basis of this pandemic. We've suspended all rent increases for the duration of the pandemic. We've increased capacity for vulnerable and homeless Manitobans, added over 140 shelter beds, extended supports for youth in care so that nobody ages out of their benefits. We've extended health and medical needs benefits to people on welfare. We've granted frontline healthcare staff paid admin leave to self-isolate to protect them and others from the consequences of a COVID infection. We've organized a very ambitious campaign to produce personal protective equipment here in Manitoba, and thank you to the companies that have stepped up and are part of that program. We've opened remote testing labs, bolstered labs, tripled testing capacity by the end of the summer. We're leading Canada in offering at-home mental health counseling and services. We have set up a portal called Help Next Door that has had a tremendous response from Manitobans who volunteered to help others, and thank you to all of them who've done that. We've been partnering and working ambitiously with frontline teachers, expanding online and distance education for students. We've increased already one of the most significant increases in our budget as a government has been scholarships and bursaries for post-secondary students. and we've announced significant increases in that budget again. We established a call center to support Manitobans who need support and information and help, and we've saved them, frankly, tens of thousands of hours of being on hold on other lines. We bolstered our Green Teams programs to be the most ambitious in the province's history. We're supporting more student jobs, more community support. We've suspended repayment of Manitoba student aid loans to help our students in that way. We have assured our municipalities of secure funding through this pandemic and through the balance of the year. We've committed an additional $500 million in strategic infrastructure investment over the next 2 fiscal years to assist in getting our economy going again. We've coordinated childcare for our frontline and emergency workers, and will continue to focus on establishing stronger childcare networks for the people of Manitoba who want that support. We are protecting our healthcare system, supporting the front line, and working to strengthen our civil service as we come out of this pandemic stronger. These are just a few of the initiatives we've undertaken so far to respond to this pandemic and its historic challenges. We are putting Manitoba and Manitobans on the road to recovery. All of us are working together to do that. But we understand that our friends and neighbors in the private sector have been some of the most significantly impacted, and we are feeling those impacts too, all of us. Whether we're in the public sector, the private sector, we're retired, in the volunteer sector, all of us are impacted. We're all part of this, and by working together as a strong Manitoba family, we will be on the road to recovery that much sooner. When members of your family are hurting, you don't turn around and walk away. You do your part to support them and help them. And that's what the people in the private sector need from us right now. They need our encouragement and support. Today I want to announce to you that we are partnering with the federal government to provide additional compensation to frontline workers who we all should be thankful for and who have been working tirelessly and at additional risk to them during this global pandemic. We were the first provincial government to confirm with the federal government our partnership on this program. We are pleased to work in collaboration with the federal government to set up our plan. Approximately $120 million will be available for essential workers in Manitoba. Thousands of Manitoba workers are on the front line every day. They're serving you, they're protecting others, and we will be forever grateful to them. These workers have been making professional and personal sacrifices to protect vulnerable Manitobans and to keep us all safe. And because of that, they'll be receiving a one-time risk payment directly from the province. Our finance minister and officials will be engaging with both public sector union leaders and private critical service providers to hear their input and to make sure we design this program and get the money out through an online application system, as we have been doing with our other programs, which I can update you on if any of you are interested in them later on. We look forward to sharing more details with you very soon on how eligible Manitobans can apply for their payments. The COVID-19 pandemic has created fear and uncertainty around the world. We're not immune here in Manitoba, and these are challenging times for people all across our province and country and around the world. And what matters most is how we respond to these challenges and stay together in doing it. Today I am really pleased to announce that we have established a Premier's Economic Opportunities Advisory Board. And this will assist me and us in renewing and revitalizing growth in our province as we come out of this pandemic together. It's going to help us emerge with confidence even stronger. I've been really heartened by the willingness of leaders from across a diverse range of economic sectors to lend their support, volunteer support, to this advisory group, and I thank them for that. Their valuable experience and their expertise, their networks of connections through professional associations, business associations, community work, and so on, will be of tremendous value in providing advice to our government as we move forward on the road to recovery. Aujourd'hui, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer le Conseil consultatif des perspectives économiques qui nous aidera à relancer et à revitaliser la croissance dans notre province est de nous aider à sortir avec confiance de cette pandémie encore plus forte. Les dirigeants de divers secteurs économiques apporteront leur précieuse expérience et expertise et fourniront des conseils à notre gouvernement alors que nous progressons sur la voie de la reprise. This group will draw on their experiences, their strengths, their skills to focus on unleashing private sector capital and investment to recover jobs and growth, to foster entrepreneurship and small business startups and technology growth, to establish and maintain collaborative networks and market intelligence among business, governments, and communities that support trade and investment and job creation, and to identify opportunities to transform government policies, programs, regulation, and services to better support a faster recovery throughout our economy. In addition, they'll be giving us advice on how to better align post-secondary institutions' course and degree offerings with the new Manitoba economic priorities and needs that we must focus on to grow our economy coming out of this pandemic. And they will advise us on how to capitalize, as we have been doing with great success here in Manitoba, on national and international market opportunities for our local companies. I think it's important to note today that we have been managing well in this province in light of our historic challenges with this virus. Manitoba is leading in many categories of assistance, in broad recovery supports. According to data compiled by the Privy Council office in Ottawa, we are the overall leader in terms of recovery supports to bridge to a stronger future. We have the second lowest number of COVID cases according to Health Canada. And this week, the Royal Bank Economics Unit released their latest quarterly provincial outlooks, and Manitoba had the highest GDP forecast, albeit negative, in Canada. None of this is to say our challenges are over. None of this should be misinterpreted as a victory lap on my part. But it is to say thank you. Thank you to Manitobans for their diligent teamwork, for focusing together on making all this possible. It is the entrepreneurship and the team spirit of Manitobans that is helping us on this road to recovery by doing the right things to protect themselves and each other. Manitobans are setting the stage for our economy to reopen by pursuing innovation and looking for new ways to deal with challenges, not ignoring them, but facing them. Manitobans are helping us to be able to say that we're among the Canadian leaders in terms of responding to this pandemic. Yeah, COVID has us in a historic recession. That's the reality. But Manitobans have reason for confidence as we look forward to our future, as we look forward to being on this road to recovery together. Manitoba's been the home of hope for over 150 years now, and will continue to be the home of hope in the future. If we keep doing the fundamental things we've been doing well, we will be on that road to recovery faster. We're going to keep our curve flat, and as we do, we're going to ensure that all of us are safe, our loved ones are safe, our friends and neighbors are safe, and that we have a healthy Manitoba today and for many generations to come. Please stay positive, encourage one another, help one another, be patient too. We'll be back. Together we can beat this thing. Happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters online, you will have one preliminary question and one follow-up question. First up this morning, from Global, Brittany.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Brittany from Global News. The Statistics Canada numbers show a 2.7% decrease in public sector jobs. Those numbers go up till April and don't include the 700 cut at Hydro 550 from the University of Winnipeg, and some unions saying those negotiations could take months before they actually take action. Why is Manitoba the only province that has announced a broad civil service reduction to deal with the pandemic?
Manitoba is not the only province. In fact, we are the third lowest impacted public service in the country of Canada in terms of public sector response to COVID. I would emphasize that these are temporary measures and that we are most certainly, in terms of post-secondary institutions, which you raised, Brittany, in your preamble, we are looking to work very closely with the universities. That dialogue is already underway, and the community colleges as well, in terms of beefing up support. But these are temporary measures to deal with the reality of the situation. There are facilities that are not open right now that don't need staff in them to clean and maintain them. There are cafeterias that aren't serving food. There are trips that don't need to be taken. There are conferences that don't need to be attended. There is money to be saved now that is not a high priority now because we don't have the need for the services right now. That money can be saved and put to good use, better use in the fall when we have more needs for online courses, for example, at post-secondary level and that type of thing. What's widely been misinterpreted as cuts is actually a reallocation of funds from a period of low demand so that we can make those funds available when we have higher demands.
Thank you. And my follow-up, I'd like to switch gears a little bit. We are going into the long weekend. The mayor held an availability this morning and says provincial bylaw inspectors can only enforce the rules at businesses, city bylaw only enforcing at city parks. The mayor says police seem to be the default enforcement tool here. Is that something that the province is looking at?
Yeah, you know what, Brittany, I'll be sharing another announcement with you tomorrow, and I'll be able to give you a more detailed update on some of the enforcement measures and steps we've taken in various ways. I'm sorry I don't have that right here with me today, but I'd be happy to share that with you tomorrow in more detail. I think it is important for the very few who would put others at risk to know that there is stepped up enforcement measures that are going to impact them, and there are fines that are going to be levied if they disrespect the safety requirements that are necessary to protect themselves and others in our province. So I'd be happy to share more detail with you tomorrow on that if that would help.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. It's Drew May from the Brandon Sun here. On the partnership with the federal government on frontline worker salaries that you announced this morning here, what kind of positions might be included in that? Like, will that just be healthcare workers, or could that be expanded to grocery and retail workers as well?
Well, Drew, it's a great question, and I think we all appreciate the work of frontline. It's a question of how you define it, isn't it? So that's why we're in the process of forming an advisory group to try to make that difficult decision and determination. And, you know, it is a difficult one, but we also recognize that people have been put at risk in a variety of roles in frontline services, whether it's in the public or private sector, and we want to make sure that we demonstrate our respect for the risks that they've subjected themselves to in serving us.
Thank you. And just to follow up on one of my colleagues' questions on universities, but the universities of Manitoba and University of Winnipeg have been asked to reduce salary expenses. And we're also hearing that locally, Assiniboine Community College is also being asked to cut. But is the province in talks with Brandon University on also cutting salary expenses?
Yeah, sure. We're all in this together. Every agency that gets government funding is asked actually each year, not just this year, to come up with plans and recognize where its priorities are. That prioritization exercise is extremely was not used in the past in Manitoba, but it has been used since we came to government, and it's one that every family uses, quite frankly, and every small business person is quite familiar with. What has been miscategorized from the get-go here is that this is an instruction to cut. It is nothing of the kind. It has never been. It is a question of prioritization, and given the pandemic's realities, there are lower needs for some services, and some positions, frankly, don't have work to do. And so we're asking people to come up with savings ideas on a temporary basis so that we can free up resources for frontline work. Some of that frontline work might be done by the very institutions you're talking about come fall, but the fact of the matter is we can't just pay people when there's not work. And so that's why we paid $2 billion of Manitobans' hard-earned money over the last 10 years into an unemployment fund, so that if there's temporary loss of work, people can still collect payments. And we're looking to draw on that fund. It's a fund we've paid into. I don't want it miscategorized by someone as being taking advantage of the federal government. It's not the federal government's money. It's our money. Manitobans and the Manitoba government have paid $2 billion into the unemployment fund. And we have every right to draw on it for a temporary basis like this pandemic has created for us. When people don't have work, you should, honest day's work for an honest day's pay. I'm a former union rep. I'm telling you, I don't think any member of any union in this province expects they should get paid for not doing any work. And when there's not work, then you have unemployment insurance. We all hope this is temporary, but that's the nature of the review mechanism to a great degree. There's also variables in terms of other areas where universities, community colleges, and others don't need to spend money right now. For travel, for example, when travel's forbidden, we can save a lot of money on travel budgets and hospitality budgets and conventions we're not going to right now. And we can put that money to good use, better use, priority use by supporting our front line now and in the future. That's exactly what this exercise is about.
From CJOB, Clay.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Regarding this program that you announced this morning for the frontline workers, now I know more information is coming, but can you give us just a few more details about how someone would apply, who's going to determine who's eligible, and it's an average, it's a one-time payout, but can you give us even a ballpark figure of what people might expect?
Yeah, Clay, I don't want to prejudge the work of the advisory group. I expect that Michelle Gavronsky over at MGU and others will be involved in giving us input on this, and I'd appreciate that. I think, don't hold me to this, Clay. I'll just say I think you're talking about four figures, maybe $1,000 or so for our frontline workers. The actual amount will be determined after we get the advice on the breadth and length of the program itself from these folks. On the delivery of it, the goal here has been, as we have been, with our programs, we announce them and then we get them up and running fairly quickly. And so that would be the plan here too.
Okay, thank you for that. Just a quick follow-up here. Your government has employed former Saskatchewan Premier Mr. Brad Wall, to review Manitoba Hydro and the broader energy landscape. Now, you have new presidents at the universities and Red River College, and you said before the crisis there needs to be a wider assessment of these entities, how they work together, in the case of hydro, to make it more efficient and more responsive Crown Corporation. So to sum it up, is the boards in these organizations part of a longer-term look at what needs to be done for these organizations?
Yeah, that's well said, Clay, and that's in a way that's the part and parcel of the effort here. With respect to former Premier Wall, it's a review of the kiosk and bipole projects to determine how they got to be double and more costly than they were supposed to be, and also to evaluate how those decisions were made to have those projects pursued at a time when energy costs were going down, just to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes in the future. Manitoba Hydro is owned by Manitobans. Manitobans have significant investments in Manitoba Hydro, and they want it to work effectively for them. On the post-secondary side, we've already done some extensive preliminary outreach to work with the post-secondary institutions to make sure that we're adapting, that we're not victims of inertia at the post-secondary level, and that we can actually adapt and be nimble in our training strategies so that the post-secondaries can do an even better job of contributing to the growing, evolving Manitoba economic needs. In other words, so we can link young people to job opportunities here at home and here in Manitoba better.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good morning, Premier. This is Josh Aldridge with the Winnipeg Sun. Just to follow up on the announcement made today, you said you wanted to open quickly, but what kind of timeline can we really be looking at for this program, especially if there's federal involvement? There's been delays in those types of programs in the past. What kind of timeline are we looking at for those funds to become available and for the funding to start being rewarded out or handed out to the frontline workers?
Yeah, the needs the need to get these funds out is there. We all know that, and the appreciation is most certainly there for our frontline people. This program took a while to evolve, and that's not a criticism of the federal government. They're up to their armpits and alligators, and we all are. But the fact of the matter is, it took a while to get the program announced. They announced it last Friday. We're announcing our format for arriving at the distribution model, a cooperative one, a consultative one. I guess to answer your question, I think it shouldn't take that long, but it's up to the advisory committee to come back with a recommendation so that we can implement it. Once it's implemented, we'll set up a portal so that people will be able to go online and they'll get their services, their check, and they'll get their money quicker.
I'm not sure if you saw the release today, but the CFIB put out a release saying the majority of small businesses say they need more help with rent, citing 79% in their latest survey. I know the province has announced a number of programs throughout this pandemic for funding. Is there any more there for rent assist for small businesses or medium-sized businesses that really do need it, not just to make next month, but to actually reopen and to be able to continue business?
No, it's a real concern, Josh. As you know, we've developed our programs to complement, not to compete with the federal government, but we've developed some of the most generous programs to fill the gaps and to strengthen the summer employment opportunities for young people that have ever been announced in the province. I just announced massive increase in our green project funding, for example, to help with the summer students. I could just share with you. So in answer to your question, nothing's off the table. We're on calls. I'm on calls with the Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister on a weekly basis. I talked to other premiers as recently as yesterday on an ongoing basis. We're comparing notes. We're looking to coordinate and cooperate as best we can with the federal government, with each other, in fact, so that our programs work more effectively to help people. I could just update you. The Summer Student Jobs Program we announced last week already has over 475 applications, and 1,149 jobs will be created from that summer student program. That's one that small businesses can use. Up to 5 summer students, 50% of the cost subsidized by the taxpayer. So that's an assist to small businesses, and we're encouraging them to use that through outreach calls, through our call centers. We're helping people get the information and encouraging them to use these programs that we've developed. On the GAP program funding, we're over almost 2,300 applications, almost $14 million already paid out to Manitoba small businesses on our GAP program. I was told yesterday Saskatchewan has just upped there, so I have to say we're no longer the most generous program in the country. We're now the second most generous, and I'm sure that someone will be after me to make sure our program is increased very soon. And so, you know, we're looking to support our small businesses and try to get them through this valley, because we want them to survive and thrive going forward.
From CBC Radio Canada, Patrick.
Bonjour, M. Pallister. Patrick Foucault, Radio-Canada. On that federal-provincial partnership for frontline workers, I just want to make sure I understand. So that $120 million, is it completely coming from the province, or will the province pay for some part of it and the federal pay for the rest?
3/4 federal, 1/4 provincial is the offer the federal government made. I think that they should be complimented on that generous proposal, and I compliment them.
Perfect, thank you. And as a follow-up on another topic, we saw yesterday Quebec's Premier François Legault recommending that all of its residents should be wearing a mask, even if they're artisanal, whenever they leave their homes. Would you make the same recommendation for Manitobans? And can you explain why or why not?
I've had several Manitobans kindly advise me that I'd look a lot better on TV if I wore a mask all the time. But in following the recommended advice of Dr. Brent Roussin, he is not suggesting that this is necessary at this point in time, nor that it would be as helpful as others might think it may be in other jurisdictions. So I'll leave it there. Each jurisdiction doesn't have to have the same rules, but I would hope all of us are listening to our senior health advisors, and I most certainly am.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart?
Mr. Premier, Mayor Bowman says the province is doing a good job of ensuring businesses respect public health orders, but said, pretty mildly, the provincial inspectors have not been enforcing physical distancing in public places. And he cited that anti-science rally with the conspiracy theorists alleged on the weekend. What can the province do to enforce physical distancing in public places in Winnipeg and elsewhere?
Yeah, it's an important question, Bartley. As I said to Brittany earlier, I apologize for not having the updated enforcement information here with me today, but I will share it with you tomorrow. I do think that is an important aspect of this. Obviously, it's very difficult, but it is also very important to make sure that we're enforcing in a province as big and broad and beautiful as ours. That is a challenge. We have taken some steps, and I'll share some of those with you tomorrow. Obviously, these deterrents it is apparent, are necessary to make sure that we're helping people not make the wrong decisions.
And Mayor Bowman was effusive in his praise this morning for Minister Squires for being open to a discussion about a new funding arrangement for the City of Winnipeg. What's on the table for the City of Winnipeg? Is it a share of PST? What are you folks thinking?
Well, I'm thinking a happy mayor is a good thing. I've got enough things to deal with without unhappy mayors. We've got RM leaders all over the province that have offered support. The mayor and I have had, I think, a growing and strengthening relationship with one another of trust. And so I welcome any positive comments any mayor has to say about the efforts of our government or our ministers.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Premier, are you asking political staff to be on some of your hands on deck? Are they taking a pay cut or voluntary reduced work hours?
On protocol staff, I think you specifically asked, Steve. I'm not sure I can give you that answer. We'll get that answer to you after the press conference. On that,
Sorry, my question was on political staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I misheard you. On political staff, I'm pleased to share with you, I'm taking 25% off my basic MLA pay, as you previously reported. That's a combination, as I said at the time, of the foregoing of any inflationary increase in MLA's pay that all MLAs in the Conservative Party have shared in. So every MLA in the PC team is taking a pay reduction. I'm taking an additional pay reduction, which totals then 25% of my base MLA pay. All my senior advisory staff are taking the same pay reduction, and we are in current discussion with all political staff about how they will be addressing this issue so that they demonstrate our willingness to show solidarity, both with those who are temporarily having to go on, we hope, work share in most cases. As I've emphasized repeatedly, a work share arrangement would be far preferable to any layoff, but also in solidarity with those in the private sector. 100,000 approximately of Manitobans right now are out of a job. And that is something I think we should demonstrate at the top of our organization with our political people, that we're supportive of them and empathetic with them and behave accordingly.
So can you give me a percentage in terms of your senior staff? You mentioned a similar percentage to you, and how many days off you would like other staff to take?
That's in discussion right now, Steve. I can only tell you that we're having the discussion, and I understand from preliminary discussion that the response has been very good and very supportive. I'll be able to share with you at the end of that discussion period, and that shouldn't be too long in the future.
From CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Hi, Mr. Premier. Back to Bart and Brittany's question, because I sat in on the mayor's news conference today. He said that the public needs to manage its expectations because it appears that provincial health inspectors are only focusing on businesses, not the broader public, and bylaw officers have still not been given the authority to go beyond parks. You suggested there could be an announcement coming. Is there a plan to broaden enforcement?
There is, and I'll share the details with you tomorrow on that, Jeff. And again, I apologize for not being able to have all that in front of me today. Wasn't anticipating the question, but I'll be happy to share with you an update tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. It's May long weekend, Mr. Premier, and people are probably going to head to their cottages in Manitoba and maybe within 50 kilometers outside the border, maybe in Ontario. But what do you want to say to them?
I want to tell them leave no trace. If they can go prepared, that'll really help. If they can go with the food they need and not go to local stores in Kenora or wherever else they're going, that'd be really good. Show some respect for the people in those communities. They're scared about getting COVID into their community. They don't have big health facilities there. They don't need Manitobans going in there and getting sick. And, so the best thing we can do here is just leave no trace. Every camper, hiker, outdoors person knows exactly what I mean when I say leave no trace. Go straight there. Have a great time. Come straight home. Leave no trace.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol.
Good morning, Premier. It's Carol Sanders at the Free Press. I'm just wondering about the advisory group that's going to help decide on the eligibility for the one-time risk payment to essential workers. Mm-hmm. Who is going to make up that advisory group, or how is it going to be decided? Like, there's 74 types of essential workers listed in the public health orders.
Yeah, Scott Fielding's on that, so I expect he'll have more detail to share with you, Carol. You're pointing out in your preamble the enormity of the challenge. That being said, it is my hope that we can get a representative group together, public and private people can come together, recognizing the importance of honoring these workers and getting the money out to them is the goal. And the challenge will be addressed, I think, best by having a partnership of representative people at the table.
And when are you going to have more than one sitting a week? With billions of dollars being spent, shouldn't the opposition have more than just half a day once a week to hold the government to account?
It's a negotiation between House leaders. If the opposition wants that, they'll be negotiating for that. I haven't heard that they're wanting that. Thank you. Just to say again, as a reminder, and I think it's important to remind one another, especially going into what we hope is an amazing May-long weekend in terms of weather and opportunities to get a little bit more fresh air. Remember, good hand hygiene is key to providing proper protection against COVID-19. Remember that if you take regular hand washing with soap and warm water for at least 15 seconds, that'll help. If you make sure to dry your hands thoroughly, that'll help. And if you can use an alcohol-based hand cleanser, if your hands are needing, even if they're not visibly dirty, that'll also be a helpful thing to do. It's important to clean your hands also after coughing or sneezing. If you're caring for a sick person, it's especially important. Before, during, and after you're preparing food, before eating, after toilet use, when your hands are visibly dirty, obviously. I also encourage all Manitobans to cover their mouth and nose with a tissue when they're coughing or sneezing, and if you can't, just cough or sneeze into your sleeve. Throw used tissues in the garbage. Immediately wash your hands or use an alcohol-based hand cleanser. Avoid close contact within 2 meters or 6 feet with anyone, especially, obviously, anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness such as coughing or sneezing. And again, I encourage families, those of you who are doing more parenting than has been the case for a while, remember to really encourage your children and adolescents to avoid sharing food, sharing drinks, sippy cups, musical instruments, you name it. Make sure that one to a customer, because we want to make sure that we keep all our children safe, obviously, and all of us safe. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow with more information. Remember, if we work together, and we have, and if we continue to, we can beat this thing. Thank you.